Welcome to the Emotional Balance Sheet, the go-to podcast for parents with multiple kids, especially those with twins, triplets, or more, who are navigating the maze of modern family life and personal finance. Whether you're overwhelmed by education or retirement planning, parenting dilemmas, career transitions, or trying to define your purpose and plan, we're here to guide you with empathy, encouragement, and expertise. Hosted by Paul Fenner, founder of Tama Capital, a certified financial planner and parent to 4 kids, including a set of triplets. Our podcast is your ally in the quest for financial peace of mind, proving that money matters, but family comes first. Subscribe now and join our community of empowered parents at tamacapital.com. This podcast is for informational purposes only and should not be relied upon for investment decisions. Clients of Tama may retain positions in the securities discussed in this podcast.
What does comprehensive financial planning even mean? At Tama Capital, it means a family office where lifestyle planning such as retirement, college, portfolio management, and tax prep and planning are all under one umbrella. But it goes beyond numbers. We focus as much on the emotional side of financial planning as we do on the financial side. We get you. We understand your challenges of building a family, business or career, and a healthy life. We are devoted to wealth planning for families like yours because we are you. Learn how our family can help your family by visiting tamacapital.com. Hi, and welcome back. This week, I'm going to try something new. It's going to be more of a visual conversation. So for the podcast listeners, I apologize, but sometimes a picture is worth 1,000 words. So I'll be sure to put the link to our YouTube channel in the show notes that you can access this conversation as well. But given the market turmoil that we've experienced, I wanted to show a few slides that I kind of go back to over and over during times like this. And these are data points and slides that I've talked to the families I work with throughout the years. And it really helps to calm some nerves, I think, to be able to step back from the noise of the day-to-day to look at the big picture and see what's really going on. So let me share my screen here and I'll get the data pulled up. And this first set of data that I want to talk about is holding periods matter. So for those watching, what you can see on the screen here are 1 day, 5 day, 10 day, 6 months, 3 months, 1 year, 3 year, 5 year, 10, a whole host of holding periods. And so what's really interesting about these data points is the positive return percentage from a 1 day look at the equity markets, the S&P 500 specifically, to a 30-year holding period. So when you look at it on a daily basis, the S&P 500 is basically a coin flip of either being positive or negative. But as you go out the timeline or holding period spectrum, that percentage keeps going up and up and up and up until it reaches 100%. So you can see here, by the time that you hit a 20-year holding period, the positive return that you're going to get is 100%. And it's 100% for 30 years as well. So what does that tell us? It tells us that on a daily basis, we're a coin flip from either being positive or negative. But if we stretch out our holding period, then our chances of being 100% go right up to 100%. And if you're looking at maybe a shorter term period, so like a 1 year holding period, that's a 75% chance that the S&P 500 is going to be positive. A 5 year is going to be 89%, a 10 year is going to be 94%, and a 15 year is going to be 98%. So again, this is something I've talked about, especially over the last few weeks, is making sure that your assets are aligned to your purpose and objectives. So if you have a long-term holding period or objective like retirement, then you want to make sure that your assets, your stocks, if you will, which are really a 15-year investment vehicle, are aligned to that strategy, that objective. But not everybody's like that. Some people have short-term objectives and holding periods, and that's fine too. The key is making sure that you align your assets correctly to the holding period, to your goals and objectives, or purpose and objectives. The next slide I want to show is who's president doesn't really matter. So you can see this data goes all the way back to the 1960s, actually 50s, 60s, when Kennedy was in the White House. And you can see that there's definitely ups and downs during a president's term in office with the S&P 500. But again, over time, all you see is a bunch of noise, these little blips. And sometimes the blips are a little bit bigger, like COVID or the great financial crisis in 08 and 09. But again, I think this data proves again that it doesn't really matter who's in office. The markets will do what the markets do. And that's typically go from the lower left to the upper right, but with some noise. And again, going back to the previous slide I just talked about, what is that holding period? If that holding period is 15, 20, 30 years, then the odds are in your favor. And that's one of the things that I try to do on the portfolio management side of working with families is to put the probability of success in our favor. The next slide I want to show is kind of goes hand in hand. And I've probably shown this slide before. I know I've showed it to the families I work with. But there's always going to be a reason to sell. Sometimes it's harder to find a reason to buy, but there's always a good reason to sell. And as you look at this slide, compliments of the group over at Ritholtz Management, specifically Michael Batnick, who's a colleague in the financial content space, puts this together and updates it pretty regular. So thanks, Mike, for doing that. But you can see there's a whole lot of global events, from world wars to great recessions to COVID to Chernobyl, you name it, Mike's got it on this list. But again, you can see that the chart goes from the bottom left to the upper right with some ups, but mostly with some downs, but mostly ups throughout that period. So as we're dealing with, today it's tariffs, tomorrow could be something else. Heck, we're still dealing with the Ukrainian-Russian war. So there's never going to be a shortage of reasons to sell. But again, going back to the previous slide, who's in office, does it really matter? No, not really. What does matter is what's your holding period? How are you aligning your assets to your purpose and objectives? And then the last slide I have is, given that a lot of attention gets played to when we have big drawdown days, which has just happened recently. And usually down days cluster themselves with big up days. And so Ben Carlson from Ritholtz as well put this chart together, which I really like. So Ben, thanks for putting this together. It shows what happens on a 1 year, 3 year, 5 year, and 10-year time period after we have a big market pullback, drawdown, meltdown, however you want to describe it. And so as the chart shows, on average, a year after we have a big drawdown, the S&P 500 is up on average 15%. On a 3-year period, it's up 40.7%. On a 5-year period, it's up 66.1%. And then on a 10-year basis, or 10-year holding period, it's up 185.9%. And again, that is positive 100% of the time. So 10 years after we have a meltdown, the S&P 500 is positive 100% of the time. So again, it reinforces, hopefully, the points I've been trying to make is, 1, there's always a reason to sell. 2, It doesn't really matter who's in the Oval Office, but what matters most is your holding period and how long you're in the market and how you align your assets to your purpose and objectives. And again, you can have long-term, medium-term, short-term objectives. The key is making sure to get alignment between your assets and those holding periods. So that way, when markets do take a tumble, when things do go off the rails, when fear is heightened and all you want to do is sell, 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 no, you're calm. You can take a deep breath and step back and look at your plan and say, nope, I know what these assets are for. They're still aligned. And this is where, and I pointed this out a few times, making some media appearances the last several weeks, is no one wakes up in the middle of the night in a cold sweat thinking, oh my gosh, I have to have a financial plan. But I can tell you with absolute certainty that times like this, when the market gets really volatile, the noise gets even louder, the geopolitical risk get even scarier, that's when the value of having a plan and working with an advisor really come into play. Because having that plan is your foundation. It's your North Star. And again, if you have alignment between how your assets are working and the time period with which you're trying to achieve your purpose and objective, then you should be in really great shape. And it helps prevent you from panicking and doing something that could really cause significant damage to your financial plan. So with that being said, I hope you enjoyed the visuals today, trying to do something new, but I think these data points really help drive my point home about having a plan and making sure that it's aligned to how your assets are performing short-term and long-term. And hopefully it gives you a little bit more peace of mind and sense of calm that when the next market downturn comes, which it will, you'll be more prepared. Now that you've made it to the end of another great conversation, are you looking for more? If so, head over to tamacapital.com where you will find all of our conversations. Use the search feature to find the topic or guest you would love to learn more about. Also, don't forget to make someone else's day by sharing our show. That's all for this week. We'll see you next time.